The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast, ServiceNow series. Our guest today is Amber Robertson. Amber is the Senior Manager of Application Services for ServiceNow at Activision Blizzard. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
We're delighted to have you. To start, we've got so much to cover that we've already pre-agreed that we're going to do a two-part podcast with Amber, because there's lots of exciting things happening in 2026. But let's start with the here and now. So you've got an incredible career in ServiceNow already, so we've got a lot to cover. With all of our guests, we start with your background in technology. Can you give us an overview of your journey from where you started early on, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to where you are today at Activision Blizzard?
I think like a lot of people, I fell into IT. My degree is actually in fine art. And when I was going through college, I needed a side job to get me through college. So I installed fiber optics in steam tunnels.
Love that.
So I actually did that through university. And then when I graduated, surprisingly or not surprisingly, if you're an artist, it is really hard to do art on demand. And so when I tried to get a job as an artist, I couldn't. And well, first I went and I taught overseas in Japan. I taught English in Japan. And so when I came back and went to get a job, I was like, well, what other skills do I have? Well, I know some networking because I was a network tech doing fiber. So it was that. It was like, if I can't do art, I guess I'm gonna go into IT. So I went into entry-level IT, and that's how I got into IT. And then I was also, when I worked in IT, a lot of people in IT also love video games. I'll
Yes.
tell you why this makes sense in a minute. And so to bond with my coworkers, I started playing a lot of video games. And I was a huge player of World of Warcraft. And so I was a big fan of this company called Blizzard Entertainment. And at the time, I was working at Broadcom and in their tier 1 support desk. At that time, I got pretty good at support desk to the point where I became a trainer. And I was actually training their overseas teams, and I was creating new support desks for Broadcom. And Blizzard Entertainment opened up a role for a desktop technician, which I had been before for Kaiser. So, everybody at Broadcom just lost their minds. Like, oh my gosh, we could work for Blizzard. So everybody was talking about it. So I just tried my hand at applying for Blizzard. I did not get the job. I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed. And I remember when I called the recruiter to ask them if I had gotten the job, she said no, but then she called me the next day and said, this is insane, but the director wants to talk to you. And I hadn't even told anybody yet that I hadn't got the job because I was so crushed, because this was my dream company. Like, I was such a fan.
Yeah.
I went in the next day, had a whole new round of interviews with Blizzard starting the next day. And it was about a whole different set of questions, like had nothing to do with the job that I had interviewed for. And it was because, like, at the end, they were like, do you kind of understand maybe what we're asking you about? And I said, it sounds like you have a flat IT org. You want to change it to a tiered structure. You need a service desk. you saw my resume that I create service desks. Do you need a service desk? So they actually created a position for me and hired me to make a service desk. So anyway, fast forward a few years, they were on Remedy, but they got to a point where they wanted a new ticketing system. And I was part of the decision process. And that, anyway, they went to ServiceNow. And that's how we got to ServiceNow.
I love it.
That is my career into ServiceNow.
Yeah, and well, look, so important to share, because starting from your education standpoint is like, talk about conversions.
I know, right?
Like many people who end up in technology, some are very fortunate to be passionate about it from a young age, and they go for it and they go off in their career. So you touched on it there. So you get the service desk role, and you're involved in the decision making process to bring in ServiceNow for its ITSM and ticketing purpose, but it obviously continues to evolve. So walk us through the from ServiceNow first iteration to maybe current state, because there's a lot in that period. For people who are hearing this, you've been on the ServiceNow speaking circuit, you've spoken knowledge, you've spoken many events about some of the incredible success stories. So I want to give you the platform to share a little bit about those also.
Yeah, trying to pack all that in. So I've been with some form of Blizzard, Activision, or King. Activision Blizzard. When you say Activision Blizzard, it covers a whole bunch of studios, which includes Blizzard Entertainment and King, and a bunch of like smaller publishing studios and gaming studios. And I've been there for over 14 years. So, wow, it has expanded quite a lot. Like when we first got it, it was just for Blizzard, and we just used it for IT. So, and when we first got it, it was just because we needed something that was built for IT and like out of the box could handle IT, but it was flexible enough that you could adjust it to the company's needs, right? And that's what, foundationally at the beginning, ServiceNow was. Fast forward to many, many years later, because I was so involved in the picking of the tool and I was so invested in making sure that it worked for my team, I was all up I wasn't in charge of the ServiceNow at that time, but I was so invested in making sure that it worked globally for Blizzard Entertainment that I stuck my nose in the implementation. I was probably really annoying. But I was so annoying that when it went through a rough patch and they were worried it wasn't going to succeed after a few years. So they put me in charge of it after a few years. And so I became the product owner for ServiceNow at Blizzard. And then a few years after that, they wanted to kind of have IT more centralized for Activision Blizzard and King for things like the enterprise applications like ServiceNow. And so they rolled out ServiceNow to all of Activision Blizzard and King. And at the time, I was in charge of the platform. So Activision had its own ServiceNow, and then King was on and Jira. And so I had to go through a huge project to consolidate Blizzard Entertainment's ServiceNow, Activision's ServiceNow onto one instance, and then bring King off of Jira and onto the consolidated platform in 1 year, because the contract renewal for Activision was coming up and they didn't want to renewal because it would cost money. So had to do it in a year. There was a time limit. And if you tried to consolidate 3 massive service desks in under a year, it's not easy. So just spoiler alert. So that was quite trial by fire, and we did it. But ServiceNow made it much easier because it was made for things like that, consolidating 3 massive companies, especially when there was no single identity tool, there was no single authentication tool between the 3. ServiceNow can handle that. So that further solidified my belief in ServiceNow as a product. So that
also your position in the company as the go-to person for all things ServiceNow.
Oh yeah. So then the next year, when HR needed a tool for all of Activision Blizzard and King, we rolled out HRSD. And then we had already built actually a custom legal tool for our legal department on top of the platform. And so we went ahead and moved our legal department over to legal service delivery. And also we had built for Blizzard only a bunch of custom applications, like for shipping and receiving and events, like event asset tracking for things like, because, a video game company has a lot of events, like esports events and things like that. So, we started rolling those things out to King and Activision as well. So they'll come to us for those things as well. And we also rolled it out to finance ops and yeah.
So Amber, you're talking about introducing ServiceNow into HR and the finance and like it's quite casual, but these are all major projects and huge undertakings given the size of Activision Blizzard and the importance of it. But it shows that your ability to do it. Can you talk a little bit about that journey and each time you are bringing the idea or when the idea is brought to you, what that is like when you go to a new department and say, hey, we're using ServiceNow successfully in a whole other side of the business. We think you can benefit from it. And then from the agreement to execution, what has that been like for you?
So luckily in our environment, it now speaks for itself. I think because it's the main support hub for our company. We were on a custom portal when we first went live with Blizzard, and Activision and King, when we brought them on board, we launched a brand new support portal for all three companies that was brand agnostic, but very gamified. So it's very polished and inviting to a gaming company. And it is the one-stop shop for help for the whole company. So people come to me. I don't tend to advertise. I have enough work. I don't tend to go out and say you should come to the ServiceNow to get this. I don't need to add more to my roadmap, but I think because people have to interact with it every day, and they see that, hey, I come to this for not only my IT, finance, legal, HR, but also they come to it for like their Blizzard video requests or their music requests, or like, because we use it for it's workflows. It's not just ticketing. Like you can put any kind of business workflow on it, and people saw that, so people see that they can have something tracked, and so they come to me and say, we need something tracked with documentation and a way to get information to our users, a way to get information from our users. We want to be on the tool.
Yeah.
So it advertises itself. I don't need to go out and say, this is the benefit it can give you. It speaks for itself.
Yeah, you've done the hard work. You've got the internal credibility from leadership and various departments. So it's now at the mature, established stage, which is a good segue into today. What are you and your team looking at and working on that's keeping you busy? What does the current role and responsibilities look like?
So we're constantly expanding to new businesses want on. We just moved off of the custom portal onto the employee center. So that just happened. For a while, sorry, ServiceNow, your employee center was just not up to gaming standards. But it is, hey, came a long way. You listen to me. I do talk to ServiceNow a lot. So good job, ServiceNow. Your employee center came a long way, and to the point where we got off the custom portal and we moved to employee center. And so that just went live in our environment. So there's that. We're moving to, of course, AI. We already have an integration with MoveWorks. So we have we try to encourage our employees to talk through Slack to like MoveWorks, which is the kind of like external Now Assist chatbot. But we're going to see if we can do something with Now Assist Virtual Agent and MoveWorks together. Start getting, because we do not have Now Assist enabled at the moment, but we're going to enable it. We're going to look into getting AI up and running this year because we do not have that enabled. So branching into the great AI world, and all the companies that want, or all the different studios and companies that want onboarded, because we do have new studios joining all the time onto Activision Blizzard, and we have to onboard them. We also don't have lifecycle management. So enabled, we had a kind of like a custom onboarding, offboarding portal that's janky. I mean, I don't know if that's the right word to use. We have a custom onboarding, offboarding portal that's not working very well, and it's not scalable. So we need to get on lifecycle management. So I think we'll work on getting on lifecycle management and expanding that to all the studios. So that is also something we're going to be doing.
So it's fair to say you've got a tremendous amount of work on your plate and more stuff coming at you all the time, which is, challenging and exciting. If I get signed to Activision Blizzard as a new studio or a new company, and you want to bring us into the ServiceNow ecosystem, who else is helping you? What does that look like day to day? Take us behind the scenes of Amber's team.
So it's me, and I wear many hats. I'm the owner of the platform. And then I have 2 engineers that are full-time employees. And then we have staff augmentation through a vendor called Milestone. And we have worked with them for over 7 years. So they've been great. We have full-time staff augment from them. We always have projects running. So depending on what project we have running, they'll augment our team for those projects. Like for right now, we are onboarding a new studio that was acquired by Activision, and we have multiple projects right now.
When you look at the roadmap, again, I said in the introduction, this is the first of several conversations we will have, because I know there's constantly new features coming down the line and new exciting developments. But what gets you excited? You've been doing this for a while, all at Activision Blizzard. You see many people in your senior leadership role will do a few years at an organization and then move around to something else. But you've stayed. What's kept you at Activision Blizzard as long as it has? And when you look at the road ahead, what are you excited to do with the current and future use cases for ServiceNow at Activision?
What's kept me at Activision is the people. It's always the people. I bring my dogs to work. I love everybody I work with. I don't have any problems. I don't have any anxiety walking through the door. I like being in the office. I have no issues going to work. And everywhere else I've worked, when I didn't want to go to work, it's because I didn't want to be there. And that was a mental health drain to me, And so I know that I could probably maybe even, I don't know, make more money somewhere else or something, but
trade-off, is it?
Yeah.
Can you
Would I be
that the
happy?
trade-off would be worth
Yeah.
it? Yeah. No, it's great to speak to someone who was able to identify what their dream company would be, find themselves actually working there, and then report back years later to say, yes, this is everything I've hoped for. It really is great. And I think that should act as encouragement and motivation to anyone listening to say, look, just try.
Yeah.
You never know. Step outside your comfort zone. You might find an alternative route in the side door, as you did.
Yeah.
Usually at this point in the interview, we would ask our guests to tell us why somebody should work at the organization they're at over some of the other great companies. I don't think we need to do that here. But what I do want to do is maybe get a little bit of an insight into future opportunities. So other gamers who would love to work at Activision Blizzard can be aware of where you see some strategic growth and investment. So looking at the year ahead, assuming you see the same demand for ServiceNow across the business growing all the time, looking at your core team, what opportunities are there going to be for ServiceNow professionals who are passionate about gaming to try and work with you and your talented team?
I think there's always opportunities in the ServiceNow space. I think that my team it's known that Activision Blizzard was acquired recently by Microsoft. And so I think that moving forward, most of our work is going to be project based. And so we will probably, it's always been, historically, it's always been project based. We have huge projects. So our staffing has always been by project. And I think it's going to be, we will have projects and then we will go through, we will need, the consultants to help us. So it's getting into those great companies like Milestone. And because we're going to go after, when we get those projects, we're going to ask those companies like your company and Milestone, because we're going to need we're going to need help and a lot of it.
Final question from me, Amber. You've already spoken so passionately about the environment, the culture, the team at Activision. What do you love most about your job now in its current form?
So not only is it a great environment, but they also allow us to work on what they call side projects, which they'll allow you to do other work and pursue your passions. So I am able to still do artwork on the side and work farmers markets to sell my art, but I'm also able to create ServiceNow apps which helps me keep my interest in ServiceNow on the side. And so I can create ServiceNow apps and sell them on the store. And we're going to have one published soon. So it'll be awesome. And I look forward to having that published because it's one that helps admins. And that'll be so cool. Yeah.
Love it. Amber, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. I was excited to get you on, given all of the interesting work that you've done, your unique career journey, and having heard some of your previous talks at Knowledge and all of the success stories that exist for the ServiceNow platform at Activision. It was great to hear how you approached it, and looking forward to getting you back on the show next year. I know there's a lot more to come with your own apps and the impact of the acquisition by Microsoft and all of the exciting possibilities with Xbox. So let's see how all of that plays out. But for now, thank you so much. We wish you, the team, and everyone at Activision Blizzard best of luck in the year ahead, and look forward to having you back on soon.
Thank you. And I'll be at Knowledge, so maybe I'll see some of you there.
We will see you there.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.